Welcome back to another episode, guys. I apologize in advance if this one is a little bit low energy. It has been an absolute week. But regardless, the subject matter that I have for us today is something absolutely fascinating, or at least I found completely jaw-dropping. So I'd actually like to cover the work of Dr. Amy Shaw. She is an expert nutritionist and a double board certified pathologist who studies the influence of gut health and gut microbiome on overall health and well-being. And the more I delved into her work, the more I found how utterly mind-boggling the body is. She explained how basically our gut microbiome can influence every aspect of our lives in terms of anxiety, depression, positivity, dopamine, serotonin. So this is something that I found absolutely insane and I would like to share with you today. And I hope that we can all learn something a little bit. This is definitely a very broad topic and something that I'm not going to have the most time to cover this week, but hopefully we can revisit sometime in the future. So yeah, to begin with, we have to understand a little bit about the gut-mind connection. And this all starts in when we're still developing in the womb. Dr. Shaw describes how when you're still developing in the womb, your brain and your stomach are actually connected physically. And this connection is obviously severed as you grow up and develop in the womb a little bit. But that connection still remains. She goes on to explain how the human gut hosts a complex community of over 100 trillion microbial cells, which is insane. But these influence the brain and brain health through the gut-brain axis. And research has indicated that the microbiome can affect stress responses and play a role in anxiety, depression, and positive hormones like serotonin and dopamine, like I mentioned. So she actually clarifies on this and says that approximately 95% of the body's production of serotonin, which is a key neurotransmitter in mood regulation, is produced in the gut. And gut bacteria also contribute to dopamine production, which influences reward and pleasure centers in the brain. So this communication actually takes place through numerous pathways, but primarily through the vagus nerve, which transmits signals both ways. So this is a bimodal form of communication. So this communication is critical in understanding and treating conditions like, for example, irritable bowel syndrome or anxiety and depression. So she highlights that there is an influence of quite specific bacteria which have been identified. So for example, bifidobacteria and lactobacillus have shown potential in alleviating symptoms of anxiety and depression, simply by producing and contributing to the production overall of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. There's also another bacteria, which I will not try and express the name because I'm sure I'm going to butcher it, but it produces vitamin B3, which is being studied in its role for enhancing our gut barrier function and potentially impacting neurological disease, which is absolutely insane. One of the biggest challenges and one of the negatives throughout studying this field that she kind of highlighted was how modern diets have really taken a severe negative toll on our gut microbiome. She goes on to say that modern diets that are high in processed foods, sugar, low in fiber, and coupled with sedentary lifestyles and high levels of stress detrimentally affect our gut health, obviously. And the more people started moving into cities and kind of being pushed and funneled into this Western lifestyle, along with its overuse of drugs and antibiotics and whatnot, they severely disrupt gut health. And this basically reduces the diversity of the microbial colony that you have in your stomach, and this leads to a bunch of issues, not limited to obesity, allergies, depression, like I said, anxiety, and whatnot. There was actually an interesting point that she went on to describe, known as the hygiene hypothesis, which also kind of trickles into the time period where people started migrating to cities, where she basically suggested that the increased level of cleanliness that we're constantly surrounded with, and a reduction in exposure to microbiomes in urban settings has contributed to the rise of of plenty of allergies and autoimmune diseases because we're no longer tolerant of foreign microbes, and this has basically decreased our tolerance. It's basically decreased our immune system, our immune response to these foreign microbes. So she advocates very heavily for a balanced lifestyle and a balanced approach to cleanliness while also exposing yourself to diverse natural environments, which can help support this gut biome. This is also tied in very heavily to our diet, obviously. So, like we said, diets high in processed foods, sugar, and alcohol are very closely linked to gut dysbiosis. And when you disrupt your microbial balance, you lead to a lot of health issues like inflammation, like I said, obesity, and a plethora of mental health diseases. So, yeah, the thing that we can do also to adjust this is try and understand a little bit how to time our circadian rhythm with our meals to impact our gut health as well. So the misalignment of eating patterns with the circadian rhythm can very heavily disrupt the gut biome as well. So you can think of it this way. If you have a big meal right before you go to bed, we all get that first boost of human growth hormone about an hour into our sleep. So that's the period where our body is going through the most recovery. But if your body is now focused on having to digest this food, then you're not in the most regenerative state to get the best out, like the most benefits out of your sleep. So that was also something that struck me very interesting because I typically have like dinner right before I go to bed. So it was just something that caught my eye that I thought was very interesting to maybe pay attention more to the timing of our meals. She then goes on to discuss the impact of fermented foods as probiotics. So fermented foods like yogurt, kefir, kimchi, kombucha, and whatnot, they all add and introduce beneficial bacteria to our gut. So they, in other words, enhance microbial diversity and support proper digestive health. And a regular consumption of these foods is associated with an improved gut barrier and reduced inflammation. She stated that if you can get roughly 4 servings of some sort of fermented food a day, then you are in the top 99th percentile of the best gut biome health that you could possibly have. So it's not that much realistically to have, which I thought was kind of promising as well. Then we can shift our focus to prebiotics. So not probiotics, but prebiotics. And these are non-digestible food components, primarily fibers, that promote the growth and activity of beneficial bacteria in the gut. So unlike probiotics, which are the actual live bacteria, prebiotics serve as the food for this bacteria. Foods rich in prebiotics include garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, bananas, whole grains, complex carbohydrates, so things like that. These kind of dietary components help enhance the growth of positive bacteria in your gut, which can overall lead to better health in all aspects. The inclusion of prebiotics is something that is very heavily being studied right now in literature, and there have been quite astounding results from a lot of these studies that have shown links to numerous health benefits, including improved digestion, improved immune function, and a potential reduced risk for chronic diseases. She then also touches on a very interesting subject known as psychobiotics and their potential to impact our health. So psychobiotics are a class of probiotics shown to confer mental health benefits directly. And research is exploring their use in treating conditions like depression and anxiety right now in clinical trials, which I think is absolutely insane. So yeah, there are specific strains of these bacteria which are being studied for their potential therapeutic effects on treating severe cases of PTSD, depression, anxiety, etc. Another really interesting thing that she highlighted was the importance of community or shared bacteria. And this sounds a little weird, but she highlights how basically looking at it from like a familiar perspective, when you are sharing food with a close family relative, like your parents were sharing foods with you, or you might be sharing foods with your kids, if you were to take a bite of some food and then you let your child have a bite of that food, you are inadvertently transferring portions of of your own gut bacteria to your child, and that's a very important and critical step for establishing their own microbiome. So it's a very critical thing, but it's something that has been a little bit neglected. I think there's been a lot of, like we said about the modernization of things, there's been a lot of sterility in the way that we approach sharing foods with people, with friends, with family members even, and whatnot. So it's something that she highlighted was quite important for establishing a healthy gut biome in the first place. And then she ends with basically recommending kind of the usual things, what we expected. The best ways that you can improve your gut health are just to stay hydrated, eat proper foods, and really try and get yourself moving as well. Physical activity plays a huge role in the influence on your microbiome and generally your overall well-being. In fact, performing physical exercise was shown to promote the release of dopamine and serotonin by these bacterial colonies in your stomach, which overall lead to better well-being, like I said. So yeah, these dietary changes can lead to a more well-balanced and diverse gut microbiome, overall improving your health and your well-being. The one thing that I also wanted to highlight a little bit, more so for the female audience, is that when you're approaching the preluteal phase of your menstrual cycle, she highlighted how it's very important to take this period incredibly seriously, given how much external influence you can receive and have an impact on your microbiome and generally your well-being. She was kind of explaining how if you're leading up to your luteal phase, it's more likely time that you need to actually back off a little bit from more intense exercise. It's the time to be a little bit more careful about the intake of your food because your insulin sensitivity is tanked. So that kind of feeds into what we were saying about the influence of our diet on our gut biome. Leading up to this phase, it is critical that you have complex carbohydrates to satisfy your cravings, satisfy the cravings of your gut biome, and also help regulate your hormones and your emotions for it. So that was everything, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it's on the shorter side, and I know we barely kind of scratched the surface of such a complex topic, but I hope that it still piqued your interest a little bit. I wish I could go into a little bit more depth this week, but we're just gonna have to save it for another time. So yeah, thank you very much again. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.